announcement. Hello, hello. Ooh. We're going to get started in a couple minutes. If anyone, I don't know if I'm full volume, if anyone didn't notice, we do have some drinks in the fridge there. Everybody, welcome. I also threw my Venmo on the fridge if anyone wants to help out, do a little donation. But yeah, we're going to get started in a couple minutes. Hang tight. Yeah.
Check, 1, 2. What's good, everybody? How you doing tonight? Welcome to Chemistry Creative. This is our, third or fourth time we've done this? I don't know how many times we've done it. My name is Jared. I manage the venue portion of Chemistry Creative, but we're a full production studio with a creative team, a fabrication shop, a creative technology team, which is Pablo here and Bryan. If you haven't met them, tell them what's up. Yeah, if you are interested in having any events here yourself, please hit me up. We have a space here, and we also have a space 2 doors down. If you have any questions, just come ask me. But yeah, I'd like to introduce our first presenter, Heckaman. Give him a round of applause.
Hello? All right. Can we get the capture card? And can we pull the lights? Okay, hello. My name is Lake. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my creative process using TouchDesigner today and basically go through a couple different pieces that I was working on pretty recently and had the opportunity to show down at Art Basel in Miami. But first, just a little bit about myself for those of you that don't know me. I'm based here in Brooklyn. I live like 4 blocks up the street. New media artist. My background's in mathematics and data science. I mostly create interactive installations that are based in some sort of natural process that I then code into a simulation and allow the audience to interact with that in some sort of interesting way. I also do custom and commission work for corporate clients, Bridgewater, Oracle, Accenture, and some fun things like the Museum of Western Heritage or the Cowboy Museum in Oklahoma City, which is a good time. And on top of that, I lead some workshops via the Node Institute. I do educational stuff on YouTube and via my Patreon. And tomorrow, actually, I'm doing a workshop with the Node Institute. So if you're interested in that, hit me up afterwards. I'm going to play some videos of my past work in a minute, but here are just a couple examples. This on this side is Surface Tensions, an interactive installation that I did in Bogota last year. It was pretty fun and kind of foundational in one of the pieces I'll be talking more about later. And then we have Mirage on the other side, which is a new piece that I'm actually excited to because this is kind of the public unveiling, I guess. It's up on this large architectural facade in China for the next 3 months, which is also pretty cool. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the process behind this piece in a second or two. Overall, this is kind of the process that I follow. I'm going to obviously go into each of these a little bit more. Forgive the very fast slides that I put together before this. But generally, I start with some concept that can either come from a corporate client brief or just an idea that I have, some inspiration, seeing some water running down a rock, you know, as you're walking along the street, or like jets going through the sky. Then I build like a prototype of that in TouchDesigner, and then this is the part that I'm going to spend a lot of time on, kind of growing and pruning the feature set of that prototype and molding it then into what ends up being the final form, and then kind of doing the mix and master at the end to finish everything off. But before we get into that, I'm going to play a couple of videos of some of the work that I talked about. So this is the piece Mirage that's playing in central China at the moment. They made this cut for me. It's very nice of them. Okay. I won't play the whole thing, but this is part 2 of the same series. Another of the Mirage series on the same screen, so these are going to be cycling back and forth throughout the exhibition period. And yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about how those came to be later. And then, okay, so this one is a piece that I won't talk much about today, but I just wanted to show because I really like it. Sorry that it's portrait. This one is a weather-reactive facade outside of a hotel in Medellin, Colombia, that I worked on with my friend Gabriel Policio last year. And this is pretty cool because the whole thing is driven by the current weather conditions outside the hotel at any given point in time. So there was a bunch of visuals that were programmed with parameters that are driven by these real-time weather data, and a couple other things like if lightning strikes nearby, and some like time of day type of stuff so that it follows the sun, which I think is a pretty cool project. And yeah, just one that I wanted to share while I had the stage. And then last, this is a recap of the Art Basel show that I did with Torin and Lyell last weekend. Featuring some lasers. So yeah, I wanted to just kind of show everybody a little bit of the work so you have a sense of what I'm working on. And now for the good stuff. I'm going to spend the rest of the time, which I think is like 10 minutes, going through and just kind of talking about the process of development of a couple of these works that I just showed on the screen. So I think the first one is this Maelstrom, which is probably one of the pieces I've been working on the longest over a very long course of time. So it's this highly interactive fluid system that's very responsive, and in the live installation last weekend, we had it hooked up to a system of LiDAR sensors, so there are a bunch of different people could all come up and kind of touch the LED wall that it was displayed on, which then, as you saw, allowed them to kind of interact with the fluid system and really push around this kind of oily mixture in real time, which I really enjoyed. But I probably began working on this one, I would say, almost 2 years ago, when I first kind of programmed the fluid simulation and became really interested in how water and generally fluid dynamics can be used as metaphors for a lot of situations we find ourselves in life. You know, you have like going with the flow, you have rising tides, lifting all boats, making waves, all of these different metaphors that I think we very intuitively connect with, but are maybe not always top of mind when we're thinking about what water means to us and how we can interact with those metaphors in our own lives. So I was trying with this piece to kind of bring that into the forefront in a fun way. Going inside, this piece is composed of a couple different layers, and each of these layers I created, I would say, probably 10 months apart. So this started with kind of like a very basic fluid simulation, which I'm sure you've all seen, and I wasn't super thrilled with the amount of detail that I was having in the simulation. I'm sure everybody's seen like these videos online of kind of the super basic one that has very nice advection and some cool motion, but a lot of them kind of look the same. And so I wanted to make one that was going to look very specific. I also really love this kind of abstract terrain landscape feel. And so I spent a lot of time crafting just this component, which is my domain warping noise. And that's kind of what I ended up using as the basis for the fluid simulation as far as the texture and the color palette goes. And these things are pretty cool because I have all these different parameters that change the texture of this quite a bit. And by doing these animations kind of in real time, I'm able to move through kind of a texture space that then drives the fluid simulation and leads to quite a bit of variety in ways that otherwise I think would be like pretty hard to achieve. And so this was kind of like one fundamental step forward that really improved a lot of the render quality. And it took me quite a bit to get this. I tried a bunch of series of images overlaid on other images, like every noise pattern imaginable. And eventually I just had to have something that I created myself to get quite just exactly what I was looking for. And in that, I was able to use some different more bespoke types of noise algorithms, which ended up giving me this really nice pattern that I ended up using as the basis for the fluid simulation, which you can see here. And so then at some point I got to something like this. I added the kind of wind motion because I wanted it to be constantly turbulent and feel very immersive, like you were caught in this twisting vortex, like a storm almost. Because I think a lot of times it feels like we're kind of caught in a storm just out there in the world. There's information beating at us from all different directions, and I wanted to capture that in some way. But there were a couple of things that I wanted to improve a little bit more, and one of those was going to be the rendering, and something that I started using a lot is lookup tables. If you guys don't use lookup tables, I would strongly recommend that you do. For example, this is without that lookup table applied, and then this one is with it applied. You can see like the contrast, all the different colors, they pop a lot better. And you can make these yourself in DaVinci or just find some online that are just downloadable, and you can apply them right in TouchDesigner. So it's really nice. And so like all of these pieces came together to kind of give the final form of this overall artwork, but it was, like I said, a very long process, and it wasn't until about a month ago that I felt like everything came together enough to be able to call it kind of a finished piece, and so here we are. This one is another that I showed in the video. This one is called Still Life, and it's my interactive Gaussian splatting piece. Oops. So here we have Gaussian splat. This one I actually took in Oklahoma City when I was doing that Cowboy Museum project. This is in the Botanical Gardens in Oklahoma City. And the interactive portion here is you can, as you touch or interact with the screen and screen space, dissolve the Gaussian splats into a nice particle system that over enough time will reform into its original three-dimensional shape, kind of regaining that still life form, although it is obviously not still during the interaction. This piece I really like. It is probably one of my favorites that I've worked on recently, but took quite a bit to figure out not only like the interaction part, but also how to use it. This is one I mentioned, kind of that growing the feature set and then pruning it back. And I think during the development process for this, the piece ultimately probably had 7 or 8 different layers of post-processing and other features on top of it that I spent several weeks in total building, like just those post-processing features. And the day before I went down to Miami to show this, I just deleted all of them because I decided I hated it. And I think it's important to kind of be able to have some time in the process to develop all of those and like test out a bunch of different tweaks, a bunch of different colorways, a bunch of different whatever, but then also not be too reluctant to just say, you know what, I tried it and it doesn't work. And I think this piece is much stronger because I decided to go the more simple route. I think if yeah, so like this is one of those post-processing layers that I talked about that, I don't know, is like kind of nice. But ultimately, I think that the piece is much stronger when it kind of stands on its own and uses some of the detail in a more direct way. And it was hurt a little bit after those weeks when I decided that I was just going to completely forget about all of that work. But sometimes it has to happen. So I guess just to talk a little bit more about what's going on in this piece, I'm actually going to, this is like the topic of my whole workshop tomorrow, so if anybody's more technically interested, you can watch it there. And I'll get into like the shader code and everything going on underneath the hood here. But we basically have a Gaussian splatting system here that is just a very fancy particle system. A very fancy particle system. That I have programmed with some custom shaders and GLSL materials to be able to transition from the points into the Gaussian splats and back, which was a pretty interesting technical problem to be able to investigate and overcome. And I basically am just taking the output of that, and for the actual piece, there's no post-processing besides the LUT, which, as I mentioned, I really like. Just for comparison, this is that without the lookup table. This is that with. It looks a little bit better without on this screen, but on mine it looks, and the LED wall looks better with, I promise. And so this entire section is what I decided to bypass, which includes some more stuff under the hood also. And yeah, that was what ultimately just didn't quite fit. And once I released that, it felt pretty good because I tested all of the other ways. And so the kind of, oh, well, what if I tried it like this questions were quieted for the most part. And that was a good learning for me to go through. And then I guess the last one, because I think I'm coming up on time. This one is called Synapse. and this one is conceptually based on bioinformatics and neurotransmitters. It's basically a particle system that I have programmed with some derivative-based noise fields. And the interactive piece here is the audience can kind of draw different paths that the particles will follow over time, which is some allegory to the way that you can have paths that form in your brain if you have patterns of behavior and things like that that occur over time. But as you'll see, they don't last forever, which I think is an important aspect of the mind that people sometimes forget about, but it is very plastic, and I think that's powerful. There's not so much to go through, I think, in this component, but I'll just give a brief tour. Here I have the velocity field, which I'm calculating with a couple different options and just kind of like fading between them. I've got some videos that I'm using. They're basically just like a gradient layer on top of this whole thing. The videos are just like ambient light shown through screens and like different filters. I have this particle system, which is very light, as you can barely see it there. And so most of the magic here is actually in the post-processing, which is a pixel sorting layer that goes over the top with some RGB delay. And with just the right set of parameters, that was what led to this really nice pattern formation with the oranges and the blacks. It was kind of a happy accident, to be honest. I don't know that I could get there again if I tried, but I did the first time, and that's the important thing. So I think with that, maybe I'll take a couple moments if there's any specific questions, but otherwise, thank you for listening. Yeah, so the question was, how did I arrive at the perfect noise shader? And the answer is lots and lots and lots of tries. But more specifically, IQ, the shader master, the true shader master, has tons and tons of articles on his blog or website about all sorts of things. One of them is on domain warping, and I spent like a month, sometime a long time ago, diving into that and finding the system that worked for me, which I will say there's like 10 different layers of noise that I'm blending between in the shader. So the output is one noise field that's actually like a concatenation of a bunch of different noises that are transformed together with a compression function. So, yeah, you asked. Anyone else? Yes, so the question is the lookup table process, and it's a good question. The answer, I think the best thing to do is to make your own lookup tables for whatever the patch that you're working on is, so every colorway that I have kind of gets its own lookup table. Generally, I will take a video or a still, pull that into DaVinci Resolve, use the color grading curves and stuff in Resolve, and then you can export a 65-point cube map LUT from DaVinci directly, and using the open color IO top in TouchDesigner, you can literally just import it with no additional work. It's a phenomenal hack. Of course. Which model of LiDAR was used? SlamTech S3 for the win. All right, thank you all.
And next up, we've got Robin. applause to Robin.
Hello. How's everyone doing? All right, so today I'm talking about how you actually bring ideas to life. How many of you want to have your own immersive event experience at some point? Awesome, cool. Okay, so this is about this, and my event is called Smash Bros. Live, which I started this year, and I'm just gonna make sure that oh, sorry, it's going through the capture card. I'm so sorry. Sorry about that. All right.
guys, and we'll see you next time.
All right, so pro tip number 1, unplugging it and plugging it back in always works. So this is Smash Bros. Live. This is an event that came together this year. In January, it was just an idea, and by April, we had actually started this thing at a venue with my band doing all of the songs. We learned 20 songs in like 2 months. And as you can see, all of the the screen display is all made in TouchDesigner. I'm going to focus a lot on project management and putting this thing together and actually like getting unstuck and figuring out what the heck it is you're trying to build. And then I'll jump a little bit into the network. So Smash Bros. Live is music, the tournament, and a fun event at its core. As we're planning this, sorry. So a little bit about me. I'm a musician, technologist, and event planner, and I've done everything from concerts to big conferences. At my old job, I used to help organize a big award ceremony at Carnegie Hall, and so I'm distilling down all of the aspects of event planning so that you all can make your own cool events. And we're going to try and break this down really simply. So you take your idea. What's your idea? Who's it for? What's most important about that? Who do you need on your team to recruit? And how do you prototype which things are in TouchDesigner and which things aren't? All right, so at its core, Smash Bros. Live is a live music, tournament, and fun event. Anything outside of that is scope creep. So if we do like a cool Kirby augmented reality thing, that's outside of the scope of this. It would be fun, it would be interesting, but it doesn't actually like hit the heart of the event. When we're talking about who the event is for, we then drill down each of these into the most important parts. So the music part is for people who love music. The tournament is for gamers, and the fun event is for anyone who just loves coming to an event. So as we think about what features to build, what to make as part of this event, we're always going back to those core audiences. And then from the core audiences, we can define success. So maybe success for someone who loves hearing music is getting to hear their favorite song. Maybe a successful event for someone who is a gamer is getting to play Smash Bros. On a big screen or play with other people who are on their level. This really helps define how we approach things, how we put it all together, and what features we build. So, jumping in. All right, so as you can see on the right here, this is Replicator. This was the quickest way to set up the network to house all of the stages for Super Smash Bros. There are over 100 stages, and trying to manually manage them would be a total nightmare. So I downloaded all of the thumbnails from a database and took advantage of parent.digits, where you're calling the number at the end. So stage 1, the digits are 1. And so you can have these reference paths, which makes it really easy and quick to load in your entire database. I knew for this event that there was just so much to encapsulate and learn, and so many songs for us to learn, because each of these stages has dozens of songs from your favorite games like Mario and Zelda. And so we needed a database that was robust, and I turned to Notion because we can take advantage of the Notion API to give the band access so that no one has to like learn TouchDesigner in order to edit and manage. And so all of this lives in a nice user-friendly table, and we don't actually have to, I don't have to have someone go in and mess around in the network. Similarly with songs, we have all of our sheet music tied to Notion, and our players, when people sign up, it's a great user experience to just go over and talk to the tournament organizer and ask to be put on the list, and have the tournament organizer sign them in on Notion and check in, rather than having a clipboard that you have to transfer somewhere or trying to manage a sign-up sheet in advance. And this gave us the most flexibility. One thing we noticed that we had to do early on is have the player names on screen. So we have this tournament going throughout the night, and people need to know when they're up next to get ready and not be about to go to the bathroom before their big match. This is our placeholder screen, so you know, this is demo mode with the banana and me, and but those are video feeds, and the middle is the screen capture. One of our really sneaky hacks is because we got to the venue and all of their heavy-duty networking is LAN. So all of their computers and the computer we used for the screen display is all wired, and we're all on iPads or our phones for everything else. And one of the immersive aspects of the event is to have this countdown timer where each match is 3 minutes, and we end the song right as the match ends. So initially we had tried to do a long wired connection, which did not go anywhere, and we streamlined that down to actually screen share a Zoom meeting. So we all just hop on a Zoom meeting, and it has the timer being displayed from a screen share of TouchDesigner. So, you know, some things go in TouchDesigner and some things are easier just to do in Zoom. Our show control is really straightforward. It's 2 scenes. One is a waiting screen, and the other is the actual display. And again, you know, we had first set this up with like a fancy Stream Deck, but that's a wired connection. And so I bought this little $8 USB numpad, and you use a keyboard in shop, and for a small venue, it works great. So I just, to switch scenes, I literally press 1 and 2. To rebuild the tournament queue, I press 0. It's very, it's a nice, easy solution for, and practical solution for when you can't wired plug in everything. All right, making it happen. 2 of the crucial things I'll go into really quick. The first is choosing your stage, so finding the right venue for your event. Obviously, screen and displays are important for us. This screen in particular was 212 by 880, which if we were using anything other than TouchDesigner would be a total nightmare. But I was like, oh yeah, we can totally make that work. And set up a display and tested it out, and through many, through a lot of working with them, we got it to look pretty good. The space capacity, if you're doing your event for the first time, a 200-person venue is not going to be a great fit. But anything that we found early on, setting up tables is actually really cozy, especially as we're building our audience. And people get really intimidated by standing in the big space in an empty room. And so anything you can do to make the space feel cozier is welcoming as you're building your audience. Do they have food and drink? Our event was 7 to 10, and so that was actually an important consideration. And location. OS is a venue in Chinatown. They are a gamer lounge, and so the audience was also a good fit for us. People who love games and music are also people who like their venue. And finally, choosing your team. So, I want to give a big shout out to Hari, who is our bass player and also has been an incredible collaborator throughout this process. But my very simple, way to break down how you choose your team and who's on it is you list out all the things you hate doing, things you love doing, and things you're neutral about. For any event, any project, you just write them all out, and you circle the ones that are most crucial for the project, and anything you hate are the things that you're going to try and find people to collaborate with first, and anything that you really love doing are the things you want to hold on to. I made this event because I wanted to play more music, and so, as big as the sketch, as this grows, as we keep going, I still want to get to play music at my event. So that's it in a nutshell. Come through. Our next one is going to be Friday, January 17th, and thanks. All right, questions. So we've done 4 this year. We started in April, and our most recent one was Halloween, where we got about 60 people out. So it's been steadily growing, and yeah, absolutely. So Notion blogs it. So the great thing about Notion is that it's really user-friendly and intuitive on the user end. So it's all single tables. You can't do relational in Notion because the API doesn't support linked tables. But basically, Notion columns are all different data types. So you can have your string, you can have numbers, and anything in your database is accessible via the API. So in the TouchDesigner things, I just do a big API dump where I drop in the JSON into a text stat and then parse that out in Notion into a table, in TouchDesigner into a table that then you just have all your data. But if there's anything specific about Notion, let me know. Cool, other questions? All right, thanks y'all.
Can y'all hear me? All right, welcome back. My name is Torin.
And I'm Pete.
And we wanted to do a talk today on Shader Park. So, how many people here have heard of shaders before? Yeah? Are they like a little intimidating though? Like, how have you like worked with shaders in the past though? I feel like shaders can be kind of this area of programming that are like super powerful, but are also really intimidating to get into. And Pete and I have been working long term on this project called Shader Park that went from night mode to day mode. Okay, that basically allows you to do 2D and 3D shaders, but try to simplify the process overall. And we started doing this early on. We were doing like a meetup in college actually, so it's really fun to kind of see a progression of this as well. Like at university, there was kind of like two main tracks. You could do design or programming. And we were like, what if you could do both? And from there, no one was really doing creative coding. And so we started hosting these meetups where we'd basically teach like P5.js and shaders, 3.js. And out of that like initial meetup, there was actually an early prototype that we started working on. I don't know if we actually have a video of like the early version of that.
I could dig it up another time, but yeah, it's not immediately handy. But yeah, so kind of the the original motivation for this project was particularly to have like an easier, quicker way to work with a particular kind of shader rendering setup called ray marching with sign distance functions, which is some fancy word, but it's basically kind of an alternative way to work with like 3D graphics and 3D modeling. It's the type of thing that you see like on Shader Toy, if you've ever been on that website before, where there's a lot of 3D stuff that might have like fractals or morphing things.
Who else been to Shader Toy? Raise your hands. Yeah, okay. If you haven't seen Shader Toy, we've got a, although mine's defaulting to Shader Park. This is also a great learning place if you're like getting into it, like go do a deep dive into this space. And also, you know, Inigo's website. Yeah, there we go. This is like where a lot of people will go to, like under the articles, to be able to learn how these different functions work. But one of the things that we started noticing is that like if you look inside these shaders, you know, you look at the implementation for something like this and you're like, oh my god, how did this person like figure out how to create this entire piece? Like they made this hash function. How did they do that? And then like even for shapes, like I feel like as a newcomer to this space, there's actually a lot of like repeated code that people are using that are kind of these like helper functions that Inigo has laid out here. And so what we wanted to do was try to like sort of make this standard library to make it a lot easier to get started with those pieces and start experimenting.
Yeah, kind of the basic like initial concept was just like to have something sort of like Shader Toy, but with less, or like more of the boilerplate sort of done for you, because even on Shader Toy, if you're experienced and you've done it before, it doesn't like allow you to import or save any like share things between projects. So you basically have like all of this boilerplate to like work with SDFs and ray marching every single time you're doing something. So this first sort of version of this was basically just like adding a library, making it more of like a framework so that you just implement like the piece of the shader that defines the geometry in the shading. And after we sort of had that first version of it, we iterated on it until eventually we made the leap from kind of what if instead of even just having the boilerplate done, you could create SDFs, you could create these kinds of geometries and animations just with like an imperative like processing or P5 kind of API where you just can with a single line like create a geometry like a sphere or a box.
Almost like that. So
exactly like that.
The big leap there was seeing if we could take a higher level language like JavaScript, and even we talked about this as well, that maybe even JavaScript isn't it's the most easily shareable language, but maybe something like Python in the future could be interesting to explore. But that once we used JavaScript to actually write the shader code for you under the hood, we're able to boil it down to these sort of single line definitions where we can start to like live code and do all of the setup for you behind the scenes for ray marching, but you get all the added benefits of easily scripting. And I think one of the big things here, and like maybe this is where could show kind of like blending between something. There's a lot of really interesting techniques that you have available at your fingertips when you are actually doing ray marching. And I think one of the kind of like classic things is like these very like blobby looking shapes. Like normally, even making a sphere actually, like if you're using regular geometry, it's many points to make a sphere. But when you're working with a distance function, one of the simplest things to make is actually a sphere. And you get some really interesting pieces here where you can actually like blend between different shapes super easily. There we go.
Doing the one-handed typing here.
You can hold your mic. There we go. Nice. There we go.
So yeah, certain things that would be not so straightforward with normal like meshes geometries. SDFs have a lot of cool properties in how you can distort. You can do like constructive solid geometry operations like subtraction or intersection, and you just have a very sort of like free, flexible RAN to like manipulate the geometries that you're working with.
So one of the things I've been working on as well, and I also wanted to show the context of this because I feel like this is such a niche area of graphics programming and it's so fun to experiment with. So we actually worked on bringing it into TouchDesigner. So we have a full plugin that you can use where any of the shader code that you write, I guess technically like JavaScript code, you can then bring into this environment. So I can just take this, for example, and we can bring it in. So I can do like a text. And no. Yeah, the one-handed setup is something. So we can do a text and then connect this in. There we go. We've got our kind of morphing geometry. And the thing that's really interesting here, if we actually go inside the component, this shader is actually a material. So the way this is working is that we're actually simulating, like if you look at the geometry, right? Like we have a sphere, and this entire shader is wrapped on the outside of the sphere, and we're simulating a full 3D scene inside the material. Like that to me kind of feels like magic. So like all of the like 3D things that you're seeing here, like in the browser, we're actually using like a giant cube that's being mapped onto it. So that if I just make this box really large, you'll see the same bounding box here. Same thing in the browser. We have the actual piece of geometry we're using is a 3D cube. Everything else is simulated inside the material.
Ray marching is actually like a form of ray tracing. So the way that it creates the images, every single pixel, the fragment shader, which is normally just used to sort of like determine the material color, it actually like executes a whole like ray marching program to like intersect the geometry to find the shape, which is a bit computationally intensive, but on the other hand, the representation of the geometry is usually a relatively simple sort of mathematical equation, which trades off and makes it not too expensive, and modern computers are really fast, so they can handle it.
Yeah, I was gonna show too that you can also like use it as a bounding box too. So if I instead like use a teapot, you can kind of see here like you could use text, but you can kind of see how like it's kind of a little bounding box for our 3D shader. And we've been doing some other really fun pieces too. So one thing that's really nice that you get from doing ray marching is that it's actually pretty straightforward to do reflections, in theory. But basically, you can kind of see from, I'll disconnect this maybe. Here's like a default one. We just wanted to make it super easy. So now you can like enable ray marched reflections. If I put it inside like a little 3D environment, it'd be a little easier to see. But you can kind of notice on the edges here, you get these nice little reflective pieces. But also, we can mix between TouchDesigner's lighting and then our built-in material. So one of the things here, we can kind of use TD lighting, and if I crossfade this, inside this component, you'll notice that I have a environment map here, and I'm using a noise to generate this color, and we can even do things like turn on soft shadows, and actually thanks to Josef Pates, we were able to get soft occlusion with other objects in the scene, which is super fun. And also, have you all experimented with T3D at all? Yeah? Let's go. So, yeah, worked with Josef on this setup. So basically what you can do, notice that this has a little output right here. If you want to use a distance field, or any object that you make in Shader Park will output a snippet of code that you can then apply into T3D to use as the actual starting shape. And the other kind of secret sauce that I wanted to share today, this is a huge shout out to Josef and also Lyell. This is also officially now an operator family. So basically, the idea here, we're stringing together snippets of code. What if we could just create a series of operators here and use those to actually generate the shader code for you? So now we've got here, right, this is our box. We've got the size, we can really easily start to chain these things together. Here's our starting shape. Oh, I'm still using TouchDesigner's lighting, that's why. Maybe, oh actually wait, I want to use a sphere because I want to show a short but sweet demo. I'm going to do this, and before it, maybe what I'll do is mirror it many, many times. Yeah, I'm going to make it really small. So I'm going to make this like 0.01. And then mirror end's really interesting because what we can do is like take an object and we can like replicate it many, many, many times. So I'm going to make this like 0.01. And don't mind me just swapping these around. But basically, we can take this. We've got our teeny, teeny sphere that you can barely see in the background. And then I'm going to take this mirror n and I'm going to start to replicate it 1, 2 times. There we go. Let's do like 7 times. Oh yeah. So kind of like what you'd imagine for instancing, but instead of actually like taking a piece of geometry and replicating it many times, we're actually taking the coordinate space and we're like duplicating the coordinate space here.
That's one of the other cool properties of SDFs as a representation for the geometry, is that you can do transformations like that, like mirroring and symmetry, to create huge numbers of objects almost for free. You can use that to make like fractals or all kinds of interesting effects and geometries.
And basically what I'm going to do here is just kind of like combine these two together. I think this is the last little example that I'll show, but we're kind of in like a default construction mode where we're just like adding new things into the scene. But you kind of saw before how we can kind of like blend between shapes. You can cut different shapes out. So we have this idea of like constructive solid geometry that you might be used to in like sort of CAD software. And you can do that very, very easily. And also, I'm just going to like kind of merge these together. Maybe I should have an operator for that, but okay. So I'm basically going to put this in maybe like an intersect mode. So in theory, if I connect these two together, or just connect the same operator to itself. In theory, we can basically intersect this with another small sphere.
Maybe either do this first sphere, put this sphere first, or do a reset before it, because otherwise the space is still mirrored.
Oh yeah. So yeah, one thing too is that like once you like apply a modification to the coordinate space, so we're replicating the coordinate space everywhere. We'll just want to reset that. It'll basically pass down to other objects. So we'll reset it really quickly, and then now we can intersect it with the sphere right here. There we go. Look at that.
Wait, it's not.
Yeah.
Oh, but it's not back here.
What do you mean?
It's not on the projector.
Oh, it's not on the projector. I'm seeing it. It looks pretty cool here.
Take our word.
Yeah, there we go. Hey. And then also you can change the construction mode. So here our construction mode is set to intersect. We can do a blend, so I can like smoothly blend between these two different shapes. Whoa. I think it would look better with a little bit more spacing. But and then we can do a mix between these two different geometries. So we can go like slowly blend from this kind of sphere cutoff to filling the whole space. Something nifty. But yeah, one last thing I wanted to share quickly was just a brief video from the Miami event. So yeah, that was a super fun setup. Basically, this is a quick little demo using Shader Park. Also, I'm like undecided if it should be called SPOPs for Shader Park operators or BLOPs. Kind of got to take a vote. Because I feel like it's so good for making like blobby shapes, and like, I mean, what's an easier way to get into shaders than making blobs? Basically, yeah. Here's a quick little video of one of the pieces. Oh, you know what? I had this last time. I tried to just like play QuickTime from my computer. I was like, all right, I'm gonna do a video. There's nothing sketchy about doing a live demo of video, and it bricked my computer last time. Yeah, I was like, no way. Oh my god. Yeah, well, no, I think it's bricked. Yeah. Oh my god. Our very first meetup, I was like, all right, we'll swap between laptops. We'll do like a bunch of TouchDesigner projects, and then on our second one, I was like, only videos. Nothing can go wrong. Plug it in, immediately bricks on QuickTime. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good frame. But yeah, I think I'll wrap it here. Any questions? Come on. Yeah. Okay, so the question is, what's the connection between RayTK, ShaderPark, T3D? Okay, so T3D is made by Josef Pates, and it's basically a way of working with 3D textures in TouchDesigner. So if any of you have played, there is an actual operator in TouchDesigner called Texture 3D, and it's great. And you're gonna reach a point, maybe if you're doing like instancing or you're like rendering particles, where you're gonna wanna like start to manipulate data, but you actually need more depth to that. So TouchDesigner doesn't have a great way at the moment to be able to work with 3D textures. So T3D is literally a whole suite of tools designed around working with 3D textures a lot easier. And what Josef has done is like made things like a blur that will also operate on a 3D texture, a feedback that'll also work on that. So as another part of it is that it also works really well with rendering things like distance fields. Like if you've seen, so he also has like different starting shapes and things like that, and those under the hood are all shaders. Yeah, so basically RayTK, I think, is a very similar not to T3D, but a similar approach maybe to ShaderPark as operators. It's basically a way of working with Raymarch shaders and I think 2D and 3D Raymarch shaders within TouchDesigner. And they've got a whole suite of tools, and it's great. You should all definitely check it out. Yeah, I think those, and I think also RayTK as well has an output for working with T3D as well. So a lot of overlap, a lot of similarities between those. Yeah, I think it's a really great toolkit as well. And I think all of these different tools I think have different design decisions, and so there's sort of slightly different ways of working with them. One thing I will say is that if you make something in ShaderPark within the TouchDesigner project, if you use the SPOPS network, you can actually take the final code from that and then just paste it in the browser, and it will run, and you can share it in the browser, which is really nice and something you normally can't really do in TouchDesigner projects. Yeah, like basically as you start to like chain together the different operators, it's literally just building the ShaderPark code for you. So you can just take the kind of final output from that and paste it in, and it should create it. Yeah. That's gonna be just freely open source and available. Ping me if you want to test it out. It is very kind of work in progress right now. And still, but I would love to have some beta testers. That'd be awesome. Yeah, and we'll post that on the ShaderPark GitHub and make a video on it too once it's like fully ready. Yeah. Any other questions? Cool. Oh yeah. That's where I feel like the naming of it could be slightly different. Yeah, so it's not related to pops, but I think I'm interested in see how I could use some of the distance fields from it to maybe integrate with pops. That could be super fun. Yeah, I know, maybe blobs. That's true. Yeah, and it is. Yeah, we do need to see also how we can set it up to basically be able to work with like T3D and then also lobs. Yeah, and also shout out again to Lyell for basically taking the like ability to create a whole operator family and extending that functionality into something we kind of reuse. I know Yosef had set it up initially and like hacked it together and has a good setup, but then it was great to be able to use that approach as well. I feel like now, so we did LOPS last time and we did SPOPs this time. So I feel like our next meetup, we just have to do a whole other operator family. So I'm looking for you all next. Yeah. Cool. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
And then, this one's super loud. Next up, we've got Javi, who's going to be doing a kind of hybrid talk AV set coming up. Hey, we'll be getting going for our final performance with Javi in just a second.
Hello, 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 hello. What's up, everybody? I'm Javier Cruz. Round of applause for all of our presenters this evening. Lots of really cool stuff. You got blopped, Torin. You got blopped in the end there. Yeah, so my name is Javier Cruz. I've been a technologist for Volvox Labs for about a decade now. My background is in music, but I came into technology and using TouchDesigner mainly through creating apps in Maximus P to drive visuals from stuff I was doing in Ableton. So I'm gonna quickly, I won't take too much time talking about the network that I'm gonna present, or here we go. I won't take up too much time talking about this pipeline. I think it's a pretty well-known pipeline, so I'll just kind of cover a couple key points of what I'm doing, and then ask you to all just metal like death wall all the chairs, and then we can I'll start dropping some music, and you can grab a beer, and we'll have some fun with the music that I prepared and the visuals. But so, who here has used MIDI in a performance? Yeah, MIDI, tried and true. So what I'm doing here is keeping it dead simple. I had prepared this set for a previous touch-in. The last one we had at Volvox Labs. I've made some modifications to it, played with some things. But like I said, my background's in music. I started by creating compositions and then having visuals, and then kind of got out of that. At Volvox, we focus, we're a new media art studio. We focus on all kinds of stuff from kinetic sculptures to a lot of interactivity. We have a full fab shop, and really are working mostly on bringing all of those skill sets together. I really wanted to say at the intersection of art and technology there. I refrained and then said it anyways. But no, we work on, one of the things we pride ourselves on is having all those skill sets under one roof. We're based out of Greenpoint. And bringing them together. So there's a couple folks from Volvox here as well. Shout out to Ben and Matt back there. But this was an attempt for the last meetup to kind of get back to my roots. I've, along with being a technologist for Volvox Labs, driving trucks, helping put together sculptures, talking to clients, I also have composed music for the company for years. And this was an attempt to get back to my roots of like just writing some music that was going to be fun and new, and then creating some visuals for it that were audio reactive in some way, that really kind of were responsive to the music. So I did that over the course of 4 nights. I spent 2 nights writing the music and then 2 nights creating the visuals. So we've seen a lot of really beautiful things tonight. Lake really kicked it off with some gorgeous things. There's some fun stuff in here, but I really just reached into the bag of old tricks. And to quote Matt Ross, I kept it simple, stupid. Keep it simple, stupid is something we say often because we have the tendency to overcomplicate things. So this is a very simple approach, in my opinion, to creating an audio reactive piece. So the key components here are I'm running Ableton, which is I had written out a whole project that had something I don't know how many channels of audio where I had composed everything. Didn't want to run that. Also, this is like an M1 Mac, so it's a little bit older, but I don't want to like have all of this overhead of like VSTs and things running in Ableton. So I bounced all that audio and left in the stuff that talks to these boxes here that have been blocking the projector all evening. I loved how we talked about closing this thing earlier and then we didn't. It's my bad. So in here I've got modular synthesizers, all kinds of fun bleeps and bloops, but there's MIDI input over here. So touch is, so I bounced those stems in Ableton and then left in some of the MIDI stuff that is communicating with my modular setup so that I can augment that audio as the audio is played back out of Ableton. But I love audio analysis. I think it's a very cool tool and it's really effective in TouchDesigner. I'm a big fan of like really discrete data hitting TouchDesigner, so I a lot of times will compose something and then just write a single MIDI channel that controls everything. It's an easy workflow for me, so if we go down here and take a quick look at Ableton, I've just grabbed all the MIDI information in here. So this gives me a lot of great cues and things in Touch. I like to like write out all my rhythmic stuff, anything that's like big beats and things. And then, let me fold this. There you go. And then up top, I have scene cues. So I usually work from the bottom up on all the like instrumental things, rhythmic things, and then at the top I have scene cues. And that's really what drives this. I mean, again, I'm keeping it super simple. This isn't like a big, super improvised piece. Like I'm gonna be doing live stuff on my synths, but I've done whole sets with this thing, and it's cool. But then after like 15 minutes, it's a lot of bleeps and bloops, and I have like a pretty nice sequencer. But I really like more composed things, so that's why I'm composing everything here and then really drawing out all this MIDI information that then gets sent over to TouchDesigner. So to do that, I'm just leveraging the IAC bus on my Mac. If we were on a PC, it'd be, is it MIDI loop? Right? Somebody's got to know. I heard it. Yeah. Or loop MIDI. Sorry, MIDI loop. Loop MIDI. So that we can pass that MIDI data internally on the machine from one piece of software to the other. So that's all coming in. For this performance, I wanted to give myself more things to fiddle with, so I stole my wife's iPad. She's not using it. And I'm running TouchOSC. Unfortunately, you can't see this up on the screen, but let me see if I can do this. Because I think there is a bit of fun here. So I'm running just simple TouchOSC. If you're not familiar with TouchOSC, it's like it's $14 now. It used to be like $5. Huh? Oh yeah, second gen. You're right. Which is actually really dope. This is the first time I used the second one. Well, my iPad screen very dirty too. But what's nice about this and what I found exciting for this performance is that I now have on this, I'm also using MIDI on this device to trigger an effects rack in Ableton. But then on my second page, which I spent minimal time preparing for this. So there's only a couple parameters, but I was trying to give myself more stuff to play with and interact with for the performance. So there's also MIDI information coming from the from the iPad running TouchNYC to control some visual stuff in TouchDesigner. So there's lots of data bouncing around between the iPad and Ableton. And then in Touch, if you have never made like a performance system, this is something at Volvox that we've done for years. And again, I made this over the course of a couple nights and just like really kept it so simple. Each one of these containers is running a scene. I have my main MIDI input coming, so this is TouchDesigner. And then I actually did do some audio processing here, where I'm bringing in the audio signal directly from the modular to play with on one of the scenes. I'd like to do that more, but I just, I'm rediscovering this pipeline. And then there is some selected MIDI channels. So these are the scene selectors, and those are just telling you know, my top network which scene to grab from each one of these containers. And I'm doing some random like effects by switching over here and then going out. So like I said, keep it simple, stupid. Very simple network, very easy implementation, and hopefully we all party to it a little bit. Any questions? Yes. No, the TouchNYC is rad. It speaks MIDI and OSC, so you could talk to all kinds of stuff with it. And there's a really nice editor in it, so like built in, whereas I think with the first gen you actually had to download the editor onto your machine and like edit there and then sync it to your iPad. This is really cool because you can just edit it here on one device. Very nice. And there's way more options. I actually was kind of got confused for a second and was trying to figure it out. Yeah, hopefully there's no questions because it's very simple. But if there are, now's the time to ask them before I start dropping the bass. No? No questions? All right, cool. So death wall the chairs. Grab a beer, then we'll death wall the chairs, and I'll start dropping some beats. Cool. Thanks. Hell yeah, look at y'all death walling these chairs. I was just joking, but thank you. Oh yeah, Matt, front row seat. Matt Ross, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, y'all can come forward. I mean, I'm not going to bite. This music's not going to hurt you. Oh, maybe it will. I don't know. Maybe it hurt your feelings. I don't know.
Bye.